It was October. He's like, I think I can get a draft in December and we can go from there. I was thinking he meant December the following year. He meant in 2 months.
Sev, you've obviously worked with Ryan Coogler going back to Fruitvale Station. I'm curious, for a movie like this, what are the initial conversations? How did this even begin? When does he start talking to you about this?
Man, so Sinners was a project he first mentioned to me a couple of years ago. We were at a leadership retreat for our company, Proximity Media, that I have with myself, Ryan, and our partner, Zinzi Coogler. And one night we were in the parking lot, and he was like, there's a movie I really want to make one day, and he kind of explained it to me. And I'm like, okay, cool. Wait, vampires? This movie sounds insane. This sounds amazing. The question was always of when we would get a chance to make it. About a year and a half ago, we were at a dinner around Halloween time. He said, I think I want to make this movie next. I'm ready to make it. But we had a very narrow window in which we could make it. It was October. He's like, I think I can get a draft in December and we can go from there. I was thinking he meant December the following year. And I was like, oh, that's going to be tight, bro. 13 months? Because, it's hard to write a screenplay. He meant in 2 months. And this man wrote like you could not believe. That first draft was phenomenal. And I think it's really because the story was inside of him his whole life. It's about his family. It's about his ancestry. I think it's in his DNA. We immediately called these amazing people, and we got to work.
So, Autumn, one of the things I love about this movie is it's a movie obviously made by people who love making movies. It feels like it's a love letter to all the movies that you and Ryan love, from horror movies to westerns to musicals. What were some of the reference points that the two of you talked about in your initial discussions?
It's so personal to him, so he generally gives me the backstory on what was the inspiration. So as far as like his family and Uncle James, he starts there. But the first reference he gave me was a book of photographs from Eudora Welty, which are black and white photographs, so not to do with the color in our film, but just like these moments in time and portraits of people that had been going through a lot on the land and working the land. And so those were very inspirational because you could just access so much of what was going on, and obviously they're just still images, but those are inspiring. And then some FSA photographs that Hannah, our production designer, had on her wall that were a Kodachrome slide film. So those were my biggest kind of draws because I love photography, and you can kind of get access to like what people are feeling just by one look. Obviously we're on 15 perf and we're doing this really nice close-up work with these characters. I'd say that was the first thing that was inspirational to me that he brought up.
Talk a little bit about how you guys landed on this idea of shooting in two 65 millimeter formats and why you chose to do the two different ones, why you chose large format film, all that.
It was supposed to be 16, Sev knows this, because this was like what him and his producers had in mind for the project, and it was smaller. And then we upped the ante to 35 because we needed more resolution for VFX for the twinning. He got a call from studio to ask about large format. He brought up 276, which is the format Hateful Eight shot, for having that scope for the Mississippi Delta, being able to see the horizon flat, sunrise and sunset. So we did a test and he fell in love. I remember he got up and walked towards the screen and said, "This is what I've been missing." When Ryan gets his mindset on something and he's inspired, then everybody just kind of comes together and we hit the ground running. And so it was really just seeing those tests and knowing that that was the right choice.
Well, what did that mean for you, Sev, from a production standpoint? When she said that you kind of helped it make it happen. Talk a little bit about that.
Our first movie we shot was Super 16 with Fruitvale Station. So it was kind of in a weird way coming back home. We haven't had a lot of opportunities to shoot film, and this movie needed it in a lot of ways. There's not a whole lot of camera crews that have done it at this level, so we really had to look for help. We called a lot of our mentors, a lot of our friends. At one point, I remember everyone was saying like, okay, we're gonna need a lot more money because we gotta get more makeup, we gotta do all this stuff. But really, it came down to, man, it's actually the same process. Just gotta be that much more careful about it. And we're really fortunate, man. Autumn put together an incredible team of Jeannie and camera people who pulled it off.
Now, Michael, from an editor's standpoint, this movie seems to me like, on the one hand, would be extremely exciting, but also extremely daunting because it's just got such a crazy blend of tones and genres, and there's so much you've got to pull together to make it a cohesive movie. What, for you, when you first read the script or when you first talked to Ryan, what did you see looming ahead of you as kind of the big challenges on this?
Well, I think it was just that. Ryan tends to write very rich characters, and when you have that and you have these characters who all have relationships, every movie, that's one of the biggest strengths. I knew coming down the road that because we have vampires, because there's genre, there's going to be a pressure to get to that stuff as fast as possible. And part of the challenge I knew was we got to make this real life, everyday stuff as compelling as possible. And it becomes a lot easier when you have such beautiful images to work with, like Autumn shot. And, after it's cut together, having Ludwig help have that motor to get us through, but really just going with what we know, which is cutting for emotion. The end of this movie does not work if you don't care about the characters. You can't say, oh, I got a cousin like that, or my brother's just like that. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has somebody in their life at one point or another that was like, you have this passion? No, you need to do this other thing. And I think making sure that came out, and what we say is we gotta let people take their medicine. The aggregate of all the moments put together when the movie's over and people walk out of that, if they feel like they're a little bit different than when they walked in, or they just went through something, or even just got to experience a moment that they got to live a different life. I think that's the goal that we have for this kind of thing.
Well, there's a lot of impressive visual effects work in the movie, but obviously the first thing I've got to ask you about is the twin Michael B. Jordans. What are the first steps in figuring out how you're going to approach that in a way that's going to be convincing on screen, that's going to give the actor what he needs, that's going to give Ryan what he needs?
The first call that I made after I got my call was I called Autumn, and I was like, 65 millimeter IMAX. What do you think? What is gonna work for you? Because I knew that if I was just gonna throw something out there, that would probably likely not be what we really want. My VFX producer and I, we went all across town in Los Angeles and just checked what is out there. I remember some friends just telling me, well, just do a face swap. I saw this on TikTok. It's really great. Where we landed on is it's a really good mix of all sorts of approaches. A lot of it is actually split screen composite, where we used a device called a techno dolly to do a repeat move, sometimes with like 18, 19 takes. A shoulder worn rig that we put together that captures Michael's performance in situ really quickly right after Ryan gets his take. And that allowed us to basically do a full head replacement on the stunt double.
And I guess before I get off this topic, I just want to ask Michael about the experience of editing to Michael B. Jordan performances.
It was a balance between showcasing it, but also hiding it. If we did the straight up split screen with two characters talking to each other, people might see our hand. And it was really important for us to feel the difference between the twins. Because if you couldn't tell the difference between these two characters, we were kind of in trouble. All credit to Mike in the world. This was the most locked in I've ever seen him. He had those nuances, and it was a challenge, but all of the pieces to the puzzle were so beautiful and so well done and put together. It was, we kind of look forward to things like this.
Before we run out of time, I want to make sure I ask about the sequence in the middle of the movie, the incredible musical number where you're traveling through time and it moves into the place burning down, and then the vampires are outside and all that stuff. Sev, what are the logistical challenges of getting something like that up and running?
I've always felt like filmmaking is the single most collaborative art form. You have people with such different experiences coming together under this one idea. That sequence represents it better than anything. It was genuinely the most complicated thing I've ever made and probably will ever make. A lot of our off days, we would all get together on the stage, all of us in our sweatpants, trying to figure out, okay, who's going to walk where? And then we started adding more extras, and we had an amazing dance choreographer who had to put together 500 plus years of dance that can all work together. We had Autumn, we had our camera operators. At one point, we would realize, oh, dang, the camera move, we need more music here. Our composer, Ludwig Göransson, was right there with his partner, Serena Göransson, writing new music as we were rehearsing just to make sure all of it would work together. The very last day of filming the movie was us burning down our stage. Our literal set, with the fire that you see, a lot of that is practical. It was just a massive, incredible collaboration, all of it led by Ryan. From the very beginning, this movie has always felt so ambitious for what we were trying to make, and Ryan would always say, I agree that a lot of this sounds impossible. Let's just close our eyes, hold each other's hands, and pretend it's possible until it's not. And I think that scene is a great example of how it became possible.
What were the challenges for you, Autumn, shooting that scene? Because obviously, it looks like a big chunk of it is just a oneer.
Yeah, I mean, with those type of things, I'm used to it with Ryan because he loves oneers and he loves challenging shots. On the page, it's all there, right? It's beautifully written and it has big imagination, big idea. And so it was a lot of meetings to figure out what he wanted to do and which departments would be handling what and like what that looked like. And so we'd all be in the room, and I think for Michael Ralla, it was like, what does that transition look like? What does it look like when you come back down? How much can we do in camera? How much is you? How much is me? Blah, 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 and stuff like that. So just those technical aspects you flesh out in pre-pro. And then also we made a previs beforehand, because Ryan always loves to collaborate with all departments and give kind of every department a guide so that everyone knows what we're doing and so everyone can be on the same page, which is always great because, as he said, it takes so many different departments to execute something. So we had a previs, we reworked that a few times, and then we did rehearsal with my amazing Steadicam operator, who, it was his first time flying the IMAX, but there's 3 IMAX shots on Steadicam in the interior mill, and goes up to a VFX takeover, which is the burning plate comes back down into a different shoot day, which was a night exterior on a 50-foot movie bird that pulls back and lands on the backs of the vampire characters. There's a lot, but it's, and then, the musical element, and Ludwig's there, and then the choreographer's there, and all these people that Sev flew in from who knows where are there, it's intense, but that's Ryan. That's how he rolls.
I think you did. I think you pulled it off. It's a great movie, and I really appreciate all of you coming and taking the time to talk with us about it. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.